From The Onion and Onion Public Radio, I'm Leslie Price, and this is The Topical. The news waits for no one, not even me, and I'm the one who makes it all up. So we better get started before it's too late. Here are today's top stories. The Senate confirmation hearings of Supreme Court nominee Judge Amy Coney Barrett continue today, and many of her critics on the left are worried about the role religion could play in her future rulings. Judge Barrett is hoping to put those concerns to rest and has promised that she would not let her Catholic faith interfere with the court's duty to crush the nation's poor and downtrodden. Barrett herself cited her time as a clerk for the late Justice Anthony Scalia as proof that she was more than capable of treating the poor as less than human in the eyes of the law. And some good news if you live in Los Angeles, as LA Mayor Eric Garcetti announced today he would be allocating $20 million toward the beautification of the city's sidewalk residents. In a statement, Mayor Garcetti called the, quote, old, decrepit eyesores long overdue for a refurbishment and pledged that the newly appropriated funding would help ensure that LA residents have something truly glamorous to look at. Public workers will soon begin giving the city's sidewalk dwellers haircuts and spa facials, a move they hope will greatly boost property values and tourism revenue in the area. Don't worry, there's plenty more where that came from. We'll be back with even more stories for you to mindlessly accept as truth right after this.
When it comes to one-year-old Isaiah, Jay, you are not the father.
That's the sound of 31-year-old software engineer Jay Swartley finding out he is not the father of his former girlfriend's child on a recent episode of Maury. He was able to attend a taping of the program thanks to a progressive new paternity leave policy that allows possible fathers to take time off to sort these type of issues out on the popular tabloid talk show. Many businesses have been adopting similar policies, and we're joined now by our chief paid time off correspondent, Jenna Resnick, to talk about this emerging new trend. Thanks for joining us, Jenna.
Of course, Leslie.
So tell me, how do these new policies work?
These policies will grant potential fathers typically 8 whole days to fly out to the studio, tape the show, and determine if they are really on the hook for the next 18 years, or if their old side piece is trying to trap them out of revenge.
The idea is that before now, fathers just didn't have the structure at work to take the time to properly scream at a partner or ex in front of a live studio audience on national television, right?
Exactly. To get a more personal feel for how these policies are affecting potential fathers' lives, I talked on the phone with Daniel Bolton of Tempe, Arizona. Daniel recently took his company's paternity leave policy to finally confront an ex-fling who wouldn't stop telling him he was the father of her 4-year-old boy Heath, despite repeated denials from Daniel that there was no way a baby with red hair was his. So before this policy, you told me your best option for determining whether or not Heath was yours was just arguing with your ex Bree over the phone.
Yeah, she'd always be texting like, get your fan ass to the Maury show and you'll see that kid is yours. And I'd be like, bitch, Maury tapes in Connecticut. Do you know how far that is from Tempe? How am I supposed to take off work?
Right, you mentioned your job only has a 2-week vacation policy.
Yeah, and no one should have to use their vacation hours to prove the fact that it is fucking physically impossible for that kid to be mine. Because when Bree got pregnant, I was in Tempe, and she was back in Phoenix fucking around with my second cousin Nick. It's obviously Nick's kid.
But you were able to go on the show with the new policy in place?
Yeah, and the company paid for it and everything.
Well, was the kid yours?
Dude, the crazy part was that little red hair fucker was mine. I swear on my mom's grave, Nick fucked with the DNA results or some shit.
Was Daniel able to keep his same job and pay when he got back as a first-time father?
Yes. Companies want these policies to give men like Daniel the peace of mind that they'll still have their jobs when they choose to go on these tapings, even if the taping stretches into a 2-parter after you learn your 3-year-old twins actually belong to your dad because he's been secretly sleeping with your wife.
And how have these policies impacted businesses that have chosen to adopt them?
Company executives say it has certainly increased worker productivity. Here's CEO Charlotte LaFleur, whose software company in Portland, Maine, recently adopted this type of paternity policy.
We find that our employees are much more motivated and present when they no longer have to be distracted with worries about whether a random 4-year-old named Camden is their son, even though the two of them look nothing alike.
And do the men have to worry about covering any potential bills that come along with taping on Maury?
Never. Our policies come with built-in reimbursements for any medical bills that come from being injured in a studio brawl or from having Maury security guards strain your neck while holding you back from pounding on your ex's new lover.
Wow, fascinating. These new policies have inspired a bit of change in some maternity leave policies as well, right?
That's right. This current trend has also caused the rise of companies adopting additional maternity leave plans that allow mothers to take time off if they need to go on Dr. Phil to confront their sexually active 13-year-old daughter, or Jerry Springer if they need to take their stepdaughter to task for sleeping with their husband.
Well, I think that's just great for fathers and mothers alike. Thank you for this fascinating report, Jenna. That's OPR's Jenna Resnick.
Thank you, Leslie.
We'll end today's episode with a report that caught the attention of the country today. Scientists have established a definitive link between the practice of book learning and increased backtalk. The report from the University of Alabama confirmed decades of speculation that exposure to highfalutin books and fancy-type settings can cause you to get a little too big for your own britches. Head researcher Jennifer Lee had this to say at a press conference today.
After years of study, we determined a significant number of correlations between reading one doggone book for the first time in your life and then suddenly not knowing when to keep your damn lips zipped. On top of that, exposure to a few big words that don't mean nothing worth knowing only causes an increase in running your mouth well beyond when you dang well know better.
I'm joined by Alan Potts, who's been covering the report for OPR. Alan, what more can you tell us?
Well, Leslie, this report offers a variety of claims for the argument that the only thing books is good for is making folks act like they ain't got no horse sense. For example, the report found that 1 out of every 3 kids seemed to start guffing to their elders moments after opening a book like they weren't raised by a firm hand. Furthermore, research subjects who went off learning a whole bunch of foo-foo words and such were 30% more likely to turn into real sass-talking sons of bitches, especially at the dinner table when only daddy's supposed to be talking.
Wow. Now, what exactly constitutes backtalk in this study?
Anything that sends you to get your mouth washed out with soap, gets your hide tanned, or makes someone think you've been hanging out with the Lutheran neighbors too much.
Interesting. And did the researchers find any other correlation to backtalk that reached beyond book learning?
They did, and Lee actually spoke about that a little at her press conference today.
We can also now confidently say that mixing around with city folk and well-to-do la-di-das and all that just makes people stuck up higher than a light pole and gets them thinking the sun rises simply because they crow.
Well, my lands.
Yeah, this particular study was pretty comprehensive in its reach. Beyond what Lee just said there, the study also showed that tinkering around with books and things not only results in more backlip, but also leads to a 70% uptick in prancing around like you own the damn place.
Well, what are researchers recommending folks do with these backtalkers?
The researchers recommended that parental or guardian figures simply smack the book talking right out of the offending party's pretty little mouths.
And what about those doing the offending?
Experts are encouraging those who glean moon-eyed ideas way above their raisin to know their table manners, mind their P's and Q's, and try picking up a damn Bible if they're so interested in reading all of a sudden.
Amen. That's OPR's Alan Potts. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Leslie.
For hundreds of years, makeup was no more than the rendered fat of an endangered animal smeared onto the face of an unmarried woman. But these days, beauty companies are increasingly eager to push the scientific envelope of what modern makeup can achieve. And now, the international cosmetics giant L'Oreal has introduced a smudge-proof lipstick able to withstand getting hit by a bus. Here with the details is OPR beauty correspondent Martha Saunders. Hello, Martha.
Hi, Leslie. Last week, French beauty company L'Oreal debuted its new Face Smash collection of ultra-long-lasting lipstick that is guaranteed to stay put even if the wearer is pancaked by a 20-ton bus hauling ass down the highway. But the question from consumers now, is it too good to be true? Let's take a listen to a portion of the ad in question.
Oh my God! Is she all right?
She's more than all right. She's perfect. New L'Oreal Face Smash streak-free high-impact lipstick keeps you looking your best for up to 24 hours, whether you're being dragged face down along the asphalt or hurtling through the air above an 18-wheeler. L'Oreal.
Because I'm worth it.
Wow, that's a bold claim by L'Oreal.
But so far, the few people who have survived say they're sold.
Sure, but makeup companies are always claiming their products don't smear. And sure, maybe in a sanitized laboratory setting, a woman can still look flawless after being tossed across the hood of a souped-up Ford F-150. But how does the lipstick hold up when the wearer has been splattered with engine oil or barfs up blood?
Well, you're right, Leslie. Not every woman's natural lip texture is going to be perfect for Face Smash. In fact, women who have drier lips may want to invest in one of L'Oreal's lip primers to add extra moisture to repel any errant chemicals that spill out of the side of the bus. I talked to one recent consumer victim about her product preferences.
This is actually the second time I've been sucked into the grill of a Mack truck doing 45 in a 25. But what's annoying is that unless I'm wearing the L'Oreal lip primer, Face Smash by itself can get really patchy. And then the EMTs think there's something wrong with my lips on top of my punctured lungs and perforated intestines and whatever. They should really package the stick and primer together. But at the end of the day, I'd rather pay a little extra for flawless-looking lips as I'm intubated, especially when the cheap eyeliner and blush left an imprint on the windshield.
Well, I guess some 2-in-1 packaging could be more useful for the professional woman in a rush to the ER.
Agreed. As a bright note, the woman you just heard, Madeline Beret, ended up engaged to the first responder who saved her life. Madeline credits L'Oreal's shade of steam-rolled red for her flawless lips. She's hoping to get a few more face smash colors once the settlement money hits, all of which are currently available at your local drugstore or Ulta.
Oh, God, she's so fucking lucky. I spend so much time trying to be cool, go with the flow Leslie, that I end up stuck in relationships with men who won't ever commit. Anyway, thanks for the report, Martha. We'll be back in a 2 sec. That's 2 seconds for the old folks listening. Being in radio, I feel pretty fortunate to not have to get all gussied up with a face full of makeup like a lot of my TV counterparts. That being said, it would certainly be a refreshing change of pace to be on the receiving end of getting hit by a bus for once. Maybe I'll give it a shot this weekend. Anyway, here's what else you need to know today. Employees at the popular polling website 538 are scrambling today as they're desperately trying to jolt Nate Silver awake after he traveled too far into an undecided voter's mind. Editors at the publication worry that if they aren't able to bring Nate Silver back to a responsive state in time for the election, he may be lost in the undecided voter subconscious for good. And some puzzling news from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers today, as some confused members are continuing to struggle to find out what the big blue cable that's connected to the country does. Civil designers have tracked the huge, thick cord from the eastern seaboard through the Appalachian Mountains and across the Ohio River, but are still struggling to make heads or tails of what the hell this thing actually does. They should try just unplugging it and plugging it back in. See what happens. And for those of you looking for a little added home security, Lowe's today has unveiled their new Hide-A-House, disguised as a giant plastic boulder. I just hid my entire property under one of those things, and I gotta say it works great. No one has bothered me in days, and the complete absence of direct sunlight is making it really easy for me to sleep in. I like it so much, I might even consider hiding myself in pitch black isolation for good. And that's the Topical for today. I'm Leslie Price. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can like and subscribe to The Topical wherever you get your podcast. And if you'd like to learn even more about the news of the show, be sure to sign up for The Topical's Patreon. We have a brand new edition of Leslie's Mail Sack out today, where I'll answer some of our listeners' least idiotic questions. And let me tell you, this week was a real doozy trying to pick out 3 that didn't sound like they were written by a Neanderthal, but we got it done. And you can only hear it on Patreon, so go sign up now. And next week on The Topical, does size matter? We're going to sit down with a sex expert who says when it comes to foreskin, the answer is yes. Fellas, you aren't going to want to miss this episode. All that and more next week on The Topical. The news doesn't stop just because this YouTube video has. For even more on all the worst things happening in the world right now, listen and subscribe to The Topical on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, you insatiable news freaks.